Welcome to Computer Organization. Yeah, I'm going to be your instructor for this semester. I'm David Tarnoff, and well, I've been teaching in the Department of Computing for quite some time now. But before that, I started out in industry, designing circuit boards, motherboards, and BIOSes for computing systems. We got everywhere from parts selection, timing diagrams, all the logic design, assembly language programming. We got pretty much down into the nuts and bolts. And because of that experience, whenever I first joined the Department of Computing, they thought, hey, here's the hardware guy. And sometimes whenever somebody in my, one of my colleagues says hardware guy, they're not necessarily being flattering. They're basically saying, that's hardware, let Tarnoff take care of it. But, and you may hear me say this more than once this semester, you can run hardware without software, but you can't run software without hardware. And so in order to understand all of the things that are going to be running on our devices, whether it's a computer, the cloud, or an embedded system, IoT device, whatever it is, it depends on the operation of the hardware. And that's why you have to take this class in order to get an understanding, at least kind of a general understanding of what the hardware is doing in order to perform the operations that we're asking it to do. Now, that said, this class is going to be fully online, fully asynchronous online. And I apologize for that. It wasn't the way I wanted to do it. The reason I teach is because I like the interaction in the classroom. I like being with the students. But, if anything, if I learned anything from last March, whenever the university put us suddenly online, was that, they told us to be flexible and to not force students to attend every class and to make the content available as best you could. And I found out that by recording all of my lectures as they were happening in real time, the number of students that were actually attending class started really dropping pretty low. And so in the end, I thought, well, they're just taking it asynchronously anyway. Why not just make the course asynchronous? Furthermore, one of the other things is that, if I had done some sort of on-ground component, hybrid component to this class, well, then different students would have different experiences. And you understand that there are different levels of comfort that different students have with, being out in public during this time. And so I thought, in order to make it a kind of an even playing field for everybody, let's just go ahead and do this fully asynchronous online. That said, I do have synchronous online office hours. So if you look up here, you'll see that I have office hours on Monday through Thursday from 1:30 to 3. What is it? 1:30 to 3, yes. And it's going to be Zoom. You can see the meeting ID and the password up there. Yes, the password is hardware. What we're going to do is I have a waiting room set up. So if you want to talk to me, ask me questions about any of the topics or ask me questions about any of the assignments, just go ahead and get onto Zoom during that period of time. There will be a waiting room just to make sure that students that are conversing with me aren't interrupted by people dropping in and out. And so I'll let you in as soon as I've finished working with the last student, and then we can have any discussion that you need regarding the content, the assessments, and so forth. If you don't bother using the phone number, I'm not in my office, but there's my phone number. If you do need to get a hold of me outside of the office hours, feel free to use my email. Now, one of the things that I hope you understand is that, in this world of 24/7 media and everybody accessing all of their social media apps and so forth constantly, I'm not. I've got things to do like sleep, mow the lawn, eat, things like that. And so I'm not constantly monitoring my email. If, though, I haven't emailed you back, responded to an email within a day, feel free to give me another email. We'll talk a little bit about what sort of things that to expect whenever it comes to talking or discussing things via email. Now, because this is a fully online asynchronous course, we are looking at getting all your content through the D2L website. If you go to the content page or the content portion of the D2L website for our course, what you're going to see is a list of lessons or topics. Now, associated with each one of the topics, you're also going to see there's a date. Now, I am treating this as a real class that you would be sitting face to face, where on January 20th, this is the topic we're going to cover. On January 25th, this is the topic we're going to cover. And so that way, you know, especially if you're not used to or not comfortable with asynchronous courses, you can still treat this as a real face-to-face course. Anyway, the way the content portion of the website is organized is that every single lesson or day is set up as a module. And if you go into that particular module, you're going to see something like this window showing up here. At the very top of the module, there's going to be a graphic which shows you basically a bird's eye view of the progression of the lesson. It starts with just in general the topics. Below the topics is the reading and also a list of any podcast, if there are podcasts available. Yes, I wrote the book and I also recorded a bunch of podcasts for you. Now, in the center section of that graphic, you're going to see something called takeaways. And those are the things that you should expect to come away from the lesson understanding. The things that you should be able to do as a result of participating in the lesson. And then the last side, what you're looking at is the assessments that are going to be due or a part of this particular lesson. Now, that's the topic outline, all right? Now, below that, you have submodules, and the top 3 submodules are really the study material. I start out with the textbook. We'll talk about the textbook in a minute, but the textbook, you know, in that reading section, there's going to be a list of the links to the textbook, to the readings that you're going to be expected to understand. Below that, if available, and not all of the lessons have podcasts available, but for especially the first half of the class, I have podcasts available for most all of the topics. Click on that, you'll see a direct link to the podcast. We'll also talk about that in a minute. And then below that is the video content, the lectures, so to speak. And so those things, and once again, if you're not familiar or not comfortable with asynchronous online classes, just treat it as going to class. You go to that lecture module, those will be all the lessons that you'll be expected to basically attend, right? Now at the bottom, you'll have the assessments module, submodule. Now, if you click on the assessment submodule, it'll give you a description of some of the things that you need to do in order to prepare for the class or to prepare, for the assessment, which is typically a quiz. Once again, we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is where you're going to find links to the quizzes and also just kind of suggestions. The study guide is probably being a little bit liberal with that term, but a set of things that you should be studying in order to successfully complete the assessments. Now, way back, whenever I first started teaching computer organization, well, let's put it this way. I'm, being an electrical engineer, wasn't quite sure exactly what the computing students should understand from the hardware. And so what I did was I just simply took the textbook that was assigned by the previous instructor and I started using that. Now, way back then, it's been 25 years or something. No, take that back, 20 years. 20 years ago, the textbook cost $124. I'm not entirely sure what it costs now, but that was a pretty piece of change back then. But it was going into things like timing diagrams and rise times and fall times and logic probes and oscilloscopes and the actual ICs, the chips and so forth that are used to make these circuits. And to be honest with you, a lot of the students were lost. A lot of students were frustrated with the material. So after every lesson, what I did was I put together an HTML file, just a little set of study notes. I said, okay, these are the things that you really need to understand from what we've talked about. Don't worry about the oscilloscopes. Don't worry about the logic probes. Don't worry about the hardware, the chips and so forth. But here's kind of a general study guide. And after doing that for probably less than a year, I noticed that the students had stopped buying the textbook and were going entirely off of my notes. So I spent some time and I took all those notes and I cleaned them up and I put them together in a cheaply published, it's a I use a self-publisher called Lulu. And I just bundled it all together along with some problems and so forth, shuttled it off to them, and now you can get you can get a book for about, I think it's about $16 with shipping. I think it's under $20 for shipping. So if you want to have a hard copy of the textbook, there's a link right there that there's the link right there, the hard copy, that allows you to purchase the textbook. But you don't have to, because the entire textbook is either fully available as a single PDF, or what I'd prefer you doing is to go ahead and grab, well, let's see, there we go, the links. You go ahead and access the links that are provided in the D2L. So if you go to the reading right there, if you go to the reading, what the reading will tell you is, okay, we need to read section 3.4 out of the textbook. Here's a link, and it'll bring you to the chapter, not just the section, but the full chapter. That's probably the quickest and easiest way to get a hold of the reading. Now, please understand, if you go, there's that link right there for the hard copy. That link takes you directly to the self-publisher. I found out a few years ago that there were some people that were going to the self-publisher. They were ordering a dozen books or so and then reselling them from their storefront on Amazon. So beware. What you're doing if you buy this book from Amazon is you're actually paying a middleman. So it'll be a little bit more expensive than it would be if you just ordered directly from Lulu. So anyway, it's up to you. Now, we are modifying the schedule just a little bit this semester to include a little bit more about parallel processing. So since parallel processing is not covered in the textbook, I've actually added a couple of additional supplementary chapters out of Null and Lober's Essentials of Computer Organization and Architecture. This is available from the university's subscription to O'Reilly online. So once again, just like the other textbook, you can get all of this information fully online in digital form. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about the podcast. I kind of experimented around in this transition from going from the hard copy textbook up to the video. I kind of took a pit stop in audio for a while. And so the first, at least maybe the 1/2 to 2/3 of the course, there's a podcast available. So you can actually listen to the content. Now, some of the now each podcast has a page that's devoted to it, along with a full transcript, and some of them have links to a worksheet. So, for things where you're doing simplifications of Boolean expressions or coming up with Boolean expressions and so forth. As you go through the worksheet, you can as you go through the podcast, you can follow along on the worksheet, and it'll show you in hard copy exactly what's being discussed in the podcast. So check out the podcast if you want to just listen to it when you're in the car. Maybe not, because we don't want to put anybody to sleep and have an accident, but you get the idea. Now, one of the things that I've spent an enormous amount of time since last March doing is taking this content and making it available online. And I created a YouTube channel in order to support that. So all of the video links are available on the D2L site. But if you want to peruse other topics or see what's available in future lessons, feel free to go to the website, the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is up there, youtube.com/c/information. So there's another way that you can get the material. All right. Now, here's the part most everybody is interested in. How am I going to get a grade? Well, the way you're going to get a grade is you're going to do assessments. I am most comfortable with having homework assignments that people turn in and I grade them, or having quizzes or tests in class. We don't have that option. So what we're going to do is have just about everything online, but the most important, the biggest chunk of your grade, 40%, is going to come from regular quizzes. Now, for every lesson, there is an associated quiz, and this will all be a D2L quiz. Now, like I said, I have every lesson assigned to a specific date. The material for that date is going to be, the lesson itself, the reading and the podcast and the videos. Those are going to be available well before the class, well before that particular date, if you want to read ahead. But the way I'm going to work it is that if I've got a particular lesson that is assigned for, say, January 25th, well, on 2 days before that, on January 23rd, the assessment, the quiz, will become available. And you will have from 2 days before until 2 days after at 11:59 p.m. on the day, on 2 days after. So if a class was the January 25th and on the 27th at 11:59, you have that period to take that quiz. Now that window of 5 days is plenty. So if you have some sort of if you've missed a quiz, there's no mechanism to make it up. There's a 5-day window, and that should be plenty to be able to take care of it. Though I do understand that in some cases we do have, things life gets in the way, and maybe there is a whole week that you're not able to get a hold of your class material. I do drop the lowest quiz grade to give you an opportunity if something just went sideways and you weren't able to stay on top of the material for that particular lesson. We do drop the lowest quiz grade. Now, because everything is set up so that we've got these due dates for things like quizzes and so forth, and I'll talk about tests in a second whenever we get to the grading. It'd be a really good idea. I highly suggest setting up D2L to send you notifications, either through email or through text or both, in order to keep track of, oh no, I've got a quiz that's due Thursday at 11:59. In order to set up notifications, it's really simple. It's like 3 button clicks. All you got to do is you got to go to, if you log into D2L and you click on your little profile picture and get the drop down menu, go to notifications, select notifications. You can select exactly what you are going to be notified for. Do understand though that this is a global setting for your account. So if you set up the notifications for my class, then you're also setting it up that way for all of the other classes. Now, let's take a look at the way you're going to see the schedule. This is a copy, just a screenshot of a portion of the schedule for this semester. Understand that you can go to D2L, and I think on the content page on the very top, I think is Syllabus and Policy. If you click on Syllabus and Policy, you'll come up with the web page that describes all of this that I'm going through. In fact, I'm really sorry, but there's going to be a quiz on it. So open up that page so you can answer the problems on the quiz. That said, our schedule, notice that I couldn't figure out another way to do this. But basically what I've got is 3 columns for the dates. So the first column is kind of the virtual date that lesson is assigned to. If this were a real class, that's the day that I would be teaching that particular lesson. The next column identifies the assignment, when the assignment is available, when the assessment is posted. All right. And then the third column is the assigned due date, the assignment due date. And so the assignment is going to be due at 11:59 p.m. on that particular day for that particular lesson. All right. Now, a couple other things that I want to mention. First of all, if you look and you see we've got tests, we actually have 3 tests. I'll talk about that in a second. We have 3 tests. So what you've got is you've got all the material. And then you've got a study day. And so that's basically kind of just we're not going to have class. We're going to take advantage of the time to study the material. And then we'll have the test. Now, notice that the virtual date, the assignment date, the assignment posted, and the assignment due, all the same date. Because for tests Test 1, Test 2, Test 3, we have 3 tests. You have exactly 24 hours to take that test. It will be available at 12:01 a.m. on that day, and it'll close at 11:59 p.m. on that day. So make sure, what I would highly suggest you do is you look at those tests, you see the dates, you put that in your calendar because you're going to be having to take a test on that particular day. And like I said, I have 3 tests. Each one is arranged this way. So study day and then 1 day to take the test. Notice also that on March 15th, the university has set up, kind of taken its spring break and kind of divided it up and spread it across the semester. One of the days for my virtual date falls on one of those ETSU break days. So I figured, let's just take a break. Okay, so notice that in our schedule too. Also, there's the links to the readings and links to the podcast. You can see the podcast episodes that are available for each one of the topics. Now, as I said, assessments, the quizzes, 40% of the grade. The remaining 60% of the grade is going to be divided evenly across 3 100-point tests. Now, these tests are not cumulative. The first 5 weeks of class, after we take it, we have test 1, and that's going to be based on the material from the first 5 weeks of class. Then the next 5 weeks of class, we'll have test 2 covering the second 5 weeks of class. And then the last 5 weeks of class, we're going to have test 3, which does so happen to occur on exam week, but it's going to be just test 3 and cover the material from the last third of the class. All right? Now, and by the way, something else about the tests, and I don't have it here, but whenever you go to the content portion of the website, you will see years worth of old tests. And when I say years worth, I mean there's dozens of old tests. And so there's a test along with an answer key. Yes, I understand that D2L is a slightly different mechanism for taking a test than a paper test, but those tests are all paper tests that give you a blank test to be able to take the test, and then give you a test with an answer key so you can see what answers you got. Now, those answer keys are actually pretty in-depth whenever it comes to the answers that are given. It shows how I went from one step to the next step, and all those details should help you be able to figure out how to solve the problems you're going to be expected to answer on the quizzes and the tests. All right. Grade posting and late work. First of all, grade posting. All the D2L quizzes, and I have them set up so that whenever you take the quiz, when you submit the quiz, it does automatic grading and posts it to the D2L grade book. So you should get at least a quick feedback for what your grade is supposed to be. 2 words of warning though. The automatic grader, especially whenever it comes to fill in the blank questions, is not all that accurate. And so I will go through and grade each one of the quizzes to make sure that they're accurate, make sure that the grading was accurate. Do not email me as soon as you take the quiz to say, oh, I got an 89, I expected a 95. Could you please look at my quiz? Yes, I'm going to look at your quiz, but I'm going to look at all of the quizzes at one time so that I can go through and do the grading fairly and evenly. So do not email me about your quiz grade or your test grade until after the answers have been posted. So what I'll do is, as soon as I finish grading them, I will then go through and I will post the answers. You can take a look at the answers and be able to contact me then and say, okay, I have a question about problem number 5. This is the way answered. I think that this is right. Please feel free to do that, but don't email me until after the answers are posted. Once again, due to the asynchronous nature of the course and the fact that we have such a window for the quizzes, and due to the fact that you know exactly what dates the tests are going to be available, there's not going to be any late work accepted without university recognized documentation that says, I was in the hospital or whatever. So, academic integrity. I hate adding this to the syllabus because, well, We're in this together to learn together, right? But I know that some of you are going to attempt to kind of circumvent that. Not you, somebody else. The key is I see that there are two reasons to cheat. Reason number one, you just didn't feel like doing the work, which I can't really help you with, and it's not going to serve you very well in the rest of your career. But the second reason I can do something about. A lot of the times whenever academic misconduct occurs, it's because the material is just not making sense and you don't see another way out other than to try and copy or find the answers from someplace else. If you're to that point, that's what I'm for. That's what they pay me for. Contact me either through email or visit me during my office hours, and we'll try and clear up the material so that it makes sense to you. All right? And also, this is, even though it is asynchronous, we are doing this as a group. We're going through this as a group. Please, we're going to treat everybody with respect. I really want to treat everybody to, be treated with respect. That includes student to student, student to instructor, instructor to student. So we're in this together. Let's go ahead and do it with respect. And I think that's it. Welcome to computer organization. One last thing. And every lesson's going to have some sort of an assessment associated with it. Turns out this one is too. So go ahead and take the quiz, open up the syllabus itself so that you can search through and figure out the answers to the questions. But go ahead, there's a syllabus quiz. We're also going to do a little bit of a lecture. So you'll notice that associated with this lesson, there's also a lecture basically introducing us to the components of digital signals and talking about different periodic waveforms. There's going to be a quiz on that too. So actually for this particular lesson, there's two quizzes, one on the syllabus, one on the material. Good luck and welcome to computer organization.